This is a test of my microphone. Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. Hi, everyone. My name is Peter Vronsky. I'm going to be your instructor for this course. This is just a quick meeting, give you guys an opportunity to ask me questions. Lectures are set up on the website that you should have a link to. Let me see if I can bring that up for you. Where is that website? Okay, hang on a second. All right. So everybody have that? Can everybody see that website?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is, you'll have the link there in your D2L. This is kind of your lifeline to the course. The lectures will be posted here one by one. As you can see, there's a video portion where there's the actual lecture, and then there are key terms. So, for example, here is, for the first lecture, some of the key terms. Lecture key terms that you want to build your notes around. These key terms will as well will appear on your midterm exam, which I'll talk about when we get to it closer. But your midterm exam will have a number of key terms. Maybe 12. You'll pick, say, 3 or 4 of them, depending on the length of the exam, and you will identify each key term and give its significance. And so you'll find those, as I say, in the lectures themselves and as well in your readings. The final exam will be similar key terms as well. However, you'll have some longer essays to write as well. Let's just go over the entire course overall. There is a textbook that's available as an ebook from the Ryerson Library, Concise History of Nazi Germany by Banderesky, right here. I've broken down for you a kind of tentative lecture schedule, what each lecture covers. And as well, I've lined up the lectures with some of the chapters in the textbook. That you'll find again on your D2L under Overview. You will find the entire schedule and your assignment instructions as well. Any questions so far? All righty.
I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Which edition of the ebook do you want us to read? Because I see a 3rd and a 4th edition.
Sorry, say again.
So the ebook, I see a 3rd and a 4th edition for the book for the course. Which one do you want us to read?
The latest edition you can get.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so it shouldn't. I don't think it'll change the outline. There may be something added to the new edition towards the end, but I don't think it'll change. I'll hold these meetings occasionally, like maybe one every 2 weeks, or certainly on the eve of a midterm or a major assignment. To allow, again, we don't really have seminars in this. The lectures, as I say, are all pre-recorded, so theoretically you can get through all the lectures in a week if you want to, depending upon how much you can take in, but they're already up there and posted for you. I'll talk a little bit about in detail your first assignment that's due not this Friday, but the Friday coming. By the way, if in the lectures you see any kind of reference to due dates or something, those lectures were recorded last summer, so just ignore in the recorded lectures anything that says, tomorrow your essay is due or something like that, that is just an artifact left over from the time I recorded those lectures in the last summer. So essay proposal, that's going to be your first assignment. You're going to submit that, as I say, not this coming Friday, but the Friday after. It's approximately 2 to 3 pages. You will give me no more, no less than 250 to 500 words describing to me what your essay is about. Make it simple. Just what is it about? You don't need to give me a structure or an outline for your essay. If you have an essay thesis, certainly, describe it to me. But, sometimes people discover their thesis as they're writing their essay. So that's not necessarily, something that you need for the proposal. And in the end, as well, if you don't have a thesis, it can be kind of an expositive essay that's, factual based as opposed to argumentative, like a report. So I do accept those as well. It'll not be a problem for you. You're going to describe, as I say, in a few paragraphs, what your essay topic is about. And then you will give me an annotated bibliography, at least 6 sources. Annotated means that there is a short 3 or 5 sentence commentary on the significance of each source to your essay. So you're going to give me the bibliographical citation, and then you're going to give me the annotation. You're going to write the annotation for that citation. The sources should be current academic books or academic journal articles. Trade books are acceptable as well, as there's a lot of historians who, of course, are writing what we would describe non-academic trade books. However, whatever source you use will need to use citations. So if you have a source that doesn't tell you where it gets its information, doesn't cite other sources, then that source is unacceptable. Obviously, things like Time Life book, the Complete Idiots or Dummies guides, Collier's, Children Encyclopedia, Wikipedia, historyplace.com websites are not acceptable. Again, journalistic works, as long as they're cited with citations, are acceptable. No essay can be entirely based on websites without permission. And of course, when I say website, it doesn't mean internet database journal sources like Muse or JSTOR, for example, which you all should become comfortable with and familiar with because you're going to be using them. You will be kind of assessed on the uniqueness and originality of your topic. Go through the key terms, the lecture, web pages, there's information there that gives you some sense of topics. There's sometimes on some pages I put sources as well. I given you here some kind of essay topic examples. For example, a biography of a lesser known Third Reich military figure, a party functionary, a politician, a business figure, writer, journalist, a war criminal, civilian, male or female, who might have made some kind of contribution to the history of the Third Reich. I say lesser known figure because primary figures, like Adolf Hitler or Hermann Goering, Heinrich Himmler, some of them have 600, 800 page biographies about them. So you're not going to be able to do it in 10 pages. But you can touch on specific topics around them, something like, the story of Hitler's mustache, or Hermann Goering as an art collector, or Hermann Goering in the Air Force. So some specific areas you can do, but you can't do an entire biography of a major figure. So that's why I say a lesser known, a more minor Third Reich figure. And, you can test me out when you submit your proposal for that. You can do an exploration of a particular theme, policy, crucial moment or aspect in the biography of a more prominent figure. So I think I've just explained that. 3, a particular battle or campaign significant to the outcome of the war. I do accept military essays for those of you who are interested in military history, something pertinent to military tactics or technologies. However, again, if you're going to do an essay on a particular piece of technology, say, an aircraft, you still, I expect you to frame it in a kind of a historical political context. I mean, what is it about Nazi Germany that leads it to develop this particular technology? So I don't want to see kind of like engineering, aircraft engineering essays on, wing formation or lift ratios and so forth. It has to be kind of historical, political look at technology and, what is it about the Third Reich that leads to developing this military technology. Same with battles. If you're going to look at battles, it has to be a battle, again, that you can handle in 10 pages. So, I often get proposals for the Battle of Stalingrad, for example. You can't do that in 10 pages. That, again, is a 600-page book. So you can do something like body armor in the Battle of Stalingrad, or a particular tactic, the use of snipers in the Battle of Stalingrad. But to try to describe Stalingrad in 10 pages is not going to work. So focus, make it narrow so that you can demonstrate to me your research skills and your abilities.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are we able to use, for example, in kind of sort of like an offensive warfare? Are we allowed to use that, like the Blitz?
So say that last part again. Can you use what?
are we allowed to use sort of like a method of a offensive warfare?
Yes, a tactic or a strategy, absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Certainly the blitzkrieg is often a theme. And definitely look, I think it's lecture 10 or lecture 11. I give you some, let me see if I can actually find it. Here we go, lecture 9. Here you can see some history on the blitzkrieg. So here's, in fact, sources. Make sure, if you're going to do the blitzkrieg, make sure you have this one, the blitzkrieg myth. Don't do anything on the blitzkrieg without reading this book first. Okay, John Moiser, The Blitzkrieg Myth. And here you can see all these various readings are available on the roots of the blitzkrieg, Hans von Seeckt, and German military reform, and so forth. Right, so that you'll find lecture 9. So that's military. You could look at a particular social, business, or political institution in the Third Reich, the Catholic Church, the Hitler Maidens, the SS, the Gestapo, the Reichsbank. Again, you can't really write a 10-page essay on the SS, which was kind of this elite criminal organization within Nazi Germany, but you can write again on some aspects of the SS, their, say, relationship to the concentration camps, or to mobile killing, or the military arm, and so forth. So again, you need to focus. So you can address a particular policy or a period or a problem in that institution's history. 6, a foreign policy issue, or foreign relations with a particular country or a particular period, a diplomatic figure, a conference, a crisis that the Third Reich involved the Third Reich. You could look at 7, a cultural field, music, art, theater, literature, cinema. Again, some are very big, again, German cinema, Nazi era cinema, 10 pages, you'll find that a challenge. So narrow down the theme within cinema or within music, and so forth. 8, you could look at a service or state branch in the Third Reich. Nursing, hospitals, orphanages, social policy, policing, healthcare, communications, railways, banks. How did they impact on the conduct of the war? What effect did the war have on them? How did National Socialist ideology shape these institutions in a unique way? You can 9, look at a role of a professional class. Doctors or lawyers or journalists, scientists, a social class, workers, peasants, the middle classes, the aristocracy. You could, pick one of those as well. Nazi medicine is a huge field. And again, if you look at my website, you'll find that I've given you a separate page on Nazi medicine, additional sources. So again, if you're going to do something on, for example, medical experimentation, or what the Nazis used to call euthanasia, though it wasn't euthanasia, it was medical killing, Operation T9, or the use of doctors on concentration camp ramps, there is a significance to that as well. So you might want to look at these sources I've given you here on that website. And anything you do on medicine, I would definitely start off by looking at Jay Lifton's The Nazi Doctors, Medical Killing and the Psychology of Genocide. That's the master work. It it covers every aspect of Nazi doctors. As I say, experimentation, their use on the ramp, euthanasia, and including a chapter on Dr. Mengele. I get often essays on Dr. Mengele, the angel of death, as he was known. So Jay Lifton's book, The Nazi Doctors, is a good starting point for you, for those doing that.
I have a question about the sources. Are
The
they
sources?
are they publicly available, or are they on like Internet Archive?
Are they available?
Yeah, like can you like access them from the Ryerson Library?
Some you can, some you'll have to find in other places. So
Okay.
Certainly the books I listed in that medical list I have for you, I'm not sure what Ryerson has from those books, but they'll have something. I'm sure they have Jay Lifton's book, but otherwise you'll have to. Yeah, that's a tall order. I don't think it's even available as a Kindle or ebook, if I'm not mistaken, the Jay Lifton book. So you may have to look for it in hard copy.
Some of them might be available on Internet Archive.
Some might be, yes.
Yeah.
Give it a try. You'll find out in the next 2 weeks as you're doing your proposal what's available to you. What else do we have on that? So 7. 8 was a look at a service or state branch. Okay. Role of professional classes, doctors, lawyers, journalists. And finally, a study of a war crimes trial, a particular crime or type of crime, a perpetrator, individual, institutions, institutional issues, legal aspects of a crime, the war crime trial process, all that is available. The one thing I don't want to see is essays on propaganda and the Hitler Youth. All right. So just those are two topics. I just can't read another essay on Nazi propaganda or Hitler Youth. I'm just burnt out from those. So find something else. Plus, often those essays get recycled from the propaganda course. So those are the only 2 topics I kind of prefer you not do. But if you have some kind of unique insight into those topics and really, 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 really want to do this, then get in touch with me and we can talk about it. But otherwise, routinely, I don't want to see any proposals on that. So that's essentially your first assignment. And eventually, you're going to give me an essay that's about 10 to 12 pages, 2,500 words in length. But again, you'll find a lecture there on citations. So I'll talk about that. I'll take you guys through it later as we get closer to the essay due date. You don't have to worry about that for now, as you're not doing any citations in your proposal. You're doing only annotations. So it's a slightly different concept. For those of you who want to try to work towards, an A or A plus, that kind of requires that you work with primary sources. For those of you who are not familiar with the difference between a primary and a secondary source, a primary source is a document that's produced at the moment of the historical event. It's actually part of the history. It could be a trial transcript. It could be a document authored by the perpetrator. It could be a military directive. It's essentially the way, if you go to graduate school, you'll be doing history, if you do pursue history on a graduate level, you'll be basing it on primary sources. Eventually your doctoral thesis will have to be a primary source. It's not required, and I'm not saying that you cannot earn an A if you brilliantly interpret secondary sources, which essentially are books like the kind I just described to you. That's a secondary source. Secondary sources often will use primary sources themselves, but it certainly is more promising, something better than an A minus if you base your essay on primary sources, and the major primary sources available on Nazi Germany, on all aspects of its history, consist of trial transcripts, which are all available online. There is a point somewhere I give you a lecture describing to you the nature of those trial transcripts, but you will also find on the web page, you will find a link right here. Nuremberg trial transcripts. And if you click there, it will take you to the U.S. Library of Congress, to the military legal resource pages. And here you can see the various trial transcripts that are available. So go through my lecture where I talk about these sources. But here, let's click on, for example, trial of major war criminals. Here you see you got 42 volumes of transcripts. They'll come in PDF format. So this is what it'll look like. And of course, they're searchable. That's the beauty of them. And these will reproduce often Nazi documents translated into English for the court. Some in original German. You'll get both German and English, I guess, translations. These are affidavits. I don't know why all these are in German here. They should be, my God, my goodness. Maybe I hit the wrong volume. This is English, obviously. All right, I hit a bad, this is documents and other material and evidence, for example. So here you have an affidavit. Here's the translation. All right. And then the German. Again, translation. You'll also find transcripts of the trials here as well, as people testify, not only the prosecution and defense documents, but the actual trial testimony. Let this load up. There you go. Here's, for example, the cross-examination of Dr. Sauckel, who was one of the defendants. He was charged in providing slave labor. So, for example, if you do an essay on slave labor, the use of slaves by the Nazi, you'll want to look at what Sauckel did, for example. So that's the big Nuremberg trial. There's also so-called trials of war criminals, the Green series. These are arranged by theme. Again, if you read the description here, it kind of gives you a little bit of a guide as to what these 15 volumes contain. And as well, something called, they're called Blue series, Red series, and Green series by the covers of their volumes. So let's look at one. Let's look at volume 1, for example. You can see it's a green covered cover. This, for example, volume 1 is the medical case. This is the trial of the doctors. Let's go volume 7, for example, is the I.G. Farben case. I.G. Farben was the fourth largest corporation in the world after General Motors, U.S. Steel, and Standard Oil of the United States. I.G. Farben was the fourth largest corporation, and it used slave labor and was involved in genocide, in the construction of the gas chambers, some of the death camps as well. So volume 7 is a trial of I.G. Farben. So if you want to look at, for example, corporate criminality and their kind of conspiracy with Nazi Germany and the SS, this would be the volume you'd want to look at, the I.G. Farben case. And then the Red series is primarily Nazi documents. And again, it's called Red because the volumes are red. And here you again will find primary source documents, collection of documentary evidence prepared by the American and British prosecutorial staffs. So all these are just very valuable here. You know, Hitler's speech, 22nd of August, 1939, memorandum, preparation for aggression, and so forth. So you know, familiarize yourself with these volumes in a way. Much of Nazi Germany's history is based on what we learned during these trials. So the Nuremberg trials are essentially the foundational historiography to the history of Nazi Germany and the Third Reich. And so I do look at it, as I say, as a criminal conspiracy. There are as well, I recently discovered trial transcripts for the Bergen-Belsen trials. Bergen-Belsen was a concentration camp, and after the war, a number of war crime trials were held there. And so if you go to this source, you can look at day by day in kind of HTML. They're not available in a PDF format, but here you can see various witnesses. For example, Sofia Litwinska. Here you can see her testimony at the trial. And so it just goes day by day.
I have a question.
Yep.
Would videos of Holocaust survivors explaining their stories and experiences, would that be considered an acceptable source to use?
That would be an acceptable source. It would be a primary source as well. It's witness testimony. You have to be careful with witness testimony because witnesses often make mistakes, historical mistakes, dates, geography sometimes. So take all witness testimony with a grain of salt, but you know, you have to kind of sort out the fundamental truths from kind of circumstantial errors in memory. Human memory is very, very flawed. So if you use it with documentary sources, primary documentary sources, then certainly witness testimony is a primary source and a valuable source. Yes, definitely, you can use that. Are there any other questions about the first, your first assignment?
Hi. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had one question. If we were to use a primary source, would that count as the 6 sources, or do you want specifically 6 secondary sources and in addition would be
It
the
would
primary?
count as one of your sources. So if, you're using volume 12 of the Nuremberg trials, for example, that's a primary source. And in fact, if you're going to use primary sources, separate them for me. Separate the primary sources from your secondary sources, but you can have a total of 6. You're not limited to 6, by the way. It's a minimum requirement, 6 sources, but it could be 50 sources if you want. The more sources, the better. However, just for the purposes of your outline, minimum 6 sources.
Okay, thank you.
I should also point out that once your proposal is graded and returned to you, you can change your topic and you don't need to write another proposal. You can check in with me if that topic works or not, but you don't need to write a whole new proposal. So you're not locked into the topic you chose for next Friday. Right, because it is early in the course, and I know as people get deeper into the course, they find other interesting things. Try not to write essays based on the first 2 lectures, as they're kind of very introductory primary lectures. So, look, as I say, go through these various lecture sources here. Look at what some of the topics are, what kind of sources there are, before you jump to something that appears in the first or second lecture, simply because Friday is coming at the end of the week and there you are. So take some time, go through the various topics, whatever your interest might be in Nazi Germany, and choose a topic. But again, you'll be you can change it once you've submitted it to me and get your grade back. You can change your topic. You're not locked into it. Any other questions?
Hi. When we talk about the currency of sources, is there a certain time limit, or?
It depends on the topic. Some things that were written in the 1950s remain current. So you need to explore your topic a little bit, see if there's any new, scholarship on that particular topic. For example, the role of women in Nazi Germany is something that has been debated and updated, over the last 10 years. The issues of the Holocaust, of course, are constantly being revised and updated. The Blitzkrieg, we have a very different notion of what the Blitzkrieg was and what it represented today than we did, say, 30 years ago. So some topics, as I say, are current from when they were first written about. Others are still being updated. So it depends on the topic. Do your research on what's out there on your topic and what has been published most recently. Start looking there.
Okay. Would it be all right to assume that objective findings can be very old, but then subjective opinions would be more current as sources?
Yeah, certainly the more we learn, the more information becomes available, the more our subjective view of that history changes, all right?
Okay.
Okay. So, for example, military history often was kind of the first thing that was documented. But even, in the case of the Eastern Front, for example, the war in Russia, with the Russian archives opening up in the 1990s, we learned a lot more about the war in Russia from the Soviet point of view in the 1990s, things that we didn't know in the 1980s, 1970s, and so forth. So war crimes as well in the Soviet Union, things opened up in the archives. We learned a little bit more. So almost everything has some degree of revision, but you know, there are some old books out there. I mean, you're going to see William Shire's The History of the Third Reich. That's a very popular journalistic book. It doesn't use citations. It's a nice introduction to kind of what I would describe the canonical history of the Third Reich. But, you know, he wrote that in 1962 or 63. It was a very popular book. And of course, we've learned a lot more about the Third Reich since then. And William Shirer himself is not a historian. He's a journalist. So it's a very adequate journalistic book. It gives you a nice chronology. But you know, when you get into details, you don't want to be relying on that book. You know, it's, as I say, not much has changed in the basic chronology of the history of the Third Reich since the Nuremberg trials in the late 1940s. But the nuances, some of the detailed stories, some of the classified material in intelligence archives, particularly in the case of the relationship between US intelligence and Nazi war criminals after the war, all that has only been recently released into the public domain. Congress passed an act in 2004 forcing the CIA to reveal its connections to Nazi war criminals. So that's on the CIA website. I don't think I put it on a link to it, but it is out there. The CIA has its own webpage where it has several pages on released documents, including primary sources from the CIA's point of view in their relationship with Nazi war criminals. So, and would have been known in the Second World War, the CIA would have been known as the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services. It's the predecessor agency to the CIA.
I'm just wondering, earlier you mentioned that we could talk about issues of the Holocaust.
Yes.
Now I'm thinking the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, like the Jewish resistance side, would that be too broad of a topic to talk about in an essay?
Which websites?
Not websites, I'm just talking about the topic as a whole, like the Jewish resistance.
Yes, that's a very good, yeah. And you may want to focus again on you know, 2 or 3 examples or a particular resistor or a particular resistance group. I think any one of those would be worth 10 pages easily. So again, you know, you could maybe explore, if you want, a general question, why there was not more resistance, or do we as historians underestimate how much resistance there was? You'll be challenged to describe it in 10 pages, but a particular topic, as I say, a specific event, a specific resistance movement or a moment, even the Warsaw Ghetto resistance, I think you should be able to do that in 10 pages. And there's an excellent primary source on that too, written by the Nazis, the so-called General Stroop report, where, you know, he writes this, I think, 60-page description of suppressing the Warsaw Ghetto in 1943, which is probably somewhere you'll find again in those Nuremberg trial transcripts or in one of those things. And I bet it's online too. But the topic is absolutely acceptable. Yeah, it's a good topic.
Would you be able to share the link for that?
The length of...
if you could just share the link for that source you just recommended.
Let me just see if I can find it. First of all, let's see if we have a Stroop report. Here's Wikipedia Stroop report. Here's what it looks like. These are photographs from that report, for example. This photograph, quite famous photograph you see here, comes from that report. In fact, Wikipedia has reproduced every photograph from that report. It's the first time I'm looking at it. This one I think is in Polish. The Stroop collection, Yad Vashem, is the Holocaust Museum and Authority in Israel. So they have an entire Stroop collection.
So Yad Vashem would be considered also unacceptable?
Yeah, Yad Vashem is an acceptable platform for, even though it has stuff on, the internet. It's an educational institution, so that's an acceptable source. Yes. Yad
Okay,
Vashem.
great. Thank you.
All right. So that's how you'll find the Stroop report. You'll find it somewhere, right? Just Google it. By the way, feel free to use Wikipedia. You just can't cite it. It's a great source, Wikipedia. It's very accurate, but it's not citable for obvious reasons. So, feel free to use Wikipedia as a guide to other sources. But anything you read on Wikipedia, you need to find the citation for it and the original source. And I mean, that's been Wikipedia policy now for years. They also want people who put up Wikipedia pages to use citations, and they often do. So, but you cannot cite a Wikipedia page itself in an academic essay, unless you're writing an essay on how the history of the Third Reich is portrayed on Wikipedia. That would be the only case where you would be able to use cite Wikipedia itself. Any other questions? Okay, so I think that sets you up at least for Friday of next week. I'll get a sense from questions being emailed to me if when I'll need to hold a next session with you guys. But again, on the eve of, I guess, the midterm, we'll hold a session as well. And I will assign a few articles as well in addition to the textbook for you to read. These were usually articles we did in seminars, but with 65 people, it's ridiculous trying to do an online seminar with you guys. So I'll have you do the readings at least from those seminars, and then maybe we'll have an informal answer and question period. So I'll do that, like I say, in this time slot, either on the Monday or a Wednesday, periodically. But otherwise, you're going to be on your own. You're going to be going through my lectures as they're linked up there and matching the key terms to the lectures. And if you have any questions, you can email me. Any last questions before I set you guys free?
Yes, hello. I just have one quick question.
Yep.
So just to reiterate, we will not be meeting on Wednesday, like having an actual class on Zoom.
Sorry, say again?
I just wanted to ask, so we're not going to be meeting on Wednesday because we do have class on Wednesday again.
Yeah, no, you won't. It's
Okay.
not, yeah, it's not necessary. What I would have done is just give you the lecture. But I already did that last year. The lecture is recorded. So you're free on Wednesdays and Mondays, other than occasionally, as I say, I'll book a Q&A session for you. It's optional. I'm not taking attendance and so forth. So for those of you who may have questions or want to interact a little bit with me and so forth, you'll have that opportunity, but there won't be regularly scheduled lectures. Those are all asynchronously available to you on that website.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I just have one question.
Yes.
I was wondering if lectures 9 and 10 are available, like the recorded ones.
I don't think they are. I don't think I recorded them because it's military history. And because they shortened this course, I've been teaching this course since 2005. It was a much longer course. They shortened this course. And as well, we have a separate course on the Second World War now, which we didn't have when this course was starting. So lecture 9 and 10 was the military history of the Third Reich. So I've left some of the key terms up there, but I did not record lectures. Those key terms will not be used on the final exam.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, your midterm, I think, will go up to the end of lecture 4, I believe. Let me see. Yes. Okay. So your midterm will cover lecture 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then the final exam, the key terms covered will be from lecture 5 to 13, except 9 and 10. Those I will not put on the final exam. But the longer essay questions may cover topics that could have occurred in lecture 1, 2, or 3, or 4, the longer questions. But once you get through your midterm, you don't have to memorize or rememorize or restudy the key terms from these lectures. Okay? All right. If there are no other questions, then you know where to find me. And I'll, once we have, I guess probably after you submit your proposals, we'll have another kind of live session like this, either Wednesday or Monday, you know, whatever. Wednesdays and Mondays were usually the lecture slots, but this is what we'll use them for occasional Q&A sessions. So
I'm just wondering, do we have to download any softwares before the exam?
Download any?
Softwares.
I still didn't catch that word.
Softwares?
Say that again.
Softwares?
It sounds like you said background, but
no, software.
Software, no. No, you're talking to me on Zoom, so I think that's the only software you need it. And if you're going to need Adobe Acrobat to read PDFs, but I assume everybody has that, right? So because when you're going on to JSTOR, oh, by the way, here's where you do get the journal article databases. If you go to right here, this link will take you to the history databases. And the ones that probably are the most valuable is JSTOR. There's lots of history sources there on JSTOR. And there was something called Muse. I don't see it anymore. I guess ProQuest. But JSTOR is kind of a major source for you, and you'll be downloading some of your readings from JSTOR, and you'll be searching on JSTOR for your academic journal articles on various topics in Nazi Germany and so forth. We've got lots of sources there. So if you're going to be reading PDFs, you certainly need Adobe Acrobat to read a PDF, but I think that comes standard with most of your operating systems, whether you're on the Mac or on the PC. The PDF readability is part of it.
I have a question.
Okay, guys.
Can
Pleasure.
I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Are the exams open book? Can we use our notes?
Again, you're distorting a little bit. Say again.
Are the exams open book or
no? All the exams are closed book.
Okay.
And what's the format for the exam?
The format for the exam for the midterm the midterm will be, again, key terms from the first 4 lectures. You'll pick maybe 3 or 4 out of a list of, say, 12 or 16, something like that. There are a lot of key terms, but be aware that once you've mastered one key term, you've often at the same time mastered the 2 or 3 key terms that follow it or that precede it. So often you'll find that the key terms are interlinked. So it looks like, you got a mass of key terms, but really they are interlinked. Also, when you view my lectures, it will kind of become obvious to you what key terms I'm stressing and I'm often hitting in the lecture, right? So it won't be a mystery for you, the probability of which key terms are going to appear on the exam. Dates, I'm not too worried about you giving me an accurate date, but I am worried that you give me a proper chronology. So it's good for you to know dates simply so that you know the order in which things happen. If you respond to me in an exam that, with some kind of assertion that's out of the factual chronology, like that something happened before it happened, then that would be a problem. But if you don't remember the exact date, give me the month and year. If you don't remember the month, give me the year. If you don't remember the year, early 1930s, mid 1940s, and so forth. So, but in terms of the content, you will want to make sure that you have the proper chronological order, because essentially history is kind of cause and effect. Things happen. They trigger other events, which then trigger other events. So you need to be able to have a proper handle on the chronology. And that's why in old school history, they used to, drill dates into you. We don't do that anymore. You don't need to know the exact date, but you should be able to know the order in which things happen chronologically, even if you're not sure about the actual precise calendar date.
Okay, thank you.
One more question. Is the exam, or both exams, are they mixed written and multiple choice, or just written?
What was the second option?
Are the exams mixed written and multiple choice, or are they just written?
Just written. There'll be no multiple choice. I only wish. It's history, unfortunately. There's no right answer in a way in history, in the way there is in mathematics. So this is like English literature. It's very interpretive. You need to master kind of the chronology in the way in English literature you need to master the source that you're writing about, that you're, doing a critical analysis of. But, there is no right or wrong answer. There's only better answers or worse answers. Of course, the answers that you give, the responses that you give, have to be based on fact. But I'm not testing you on the fact. I'm testing you on the interpretation of the facts. So, in that sense, it's very difficult to cheat on a history exam. If I'm telling you that it's, a closed book exam, but then you look something up, that's not going to help you. Because that's, what can you look up? You can only look up a fact. How do you look up an interpretation? So you better have your facts well digested, because when you come to the midterm, it's a closed book exam, and an open book exam would not help you. It's not like mathematics where you can look up a particular, algorithm or formula, like in chemistry, and you got it right or you got it wrong. That's not how it works in history. It's all about your critical thinking and your ability to interpret this mass of facts that you're going to be encountering. So, bear that in mind. There's a lot of what we call bullshit or wiggle available to you. It's, any interpretation is valid as long as it's based on fact, as long as you're not making assumptions and arguments based on the misinterpretation of the chronology or of the facts. But, when you're faced with a history exam question, it's not something you can look up in the book. You either have studied it and you have the capacity for critical analysis, or that's a weakness that is going to hurt you if you don't have that capacity. But looking it up while you're writing your exam is going to be of no help to you whatsoever. All right. Any other questions? Okay, guys, as I say, it was a good meeting with you to the extent that we managed to meet. And if you have any further questions, you can email me, and I will let you know when we have another Q&A question. And so just read the course outline, the assignment outlines. The key to getting good grades here with me is just follow the instructions. Every time you don't follow the instructions, you're going to lose marks. I can guarantee you. That's how you lose grades. So just read the instructions. If you do as the instructions ask, you will do well in this course. Okay, see you next time, everybody, and I'll see you on the internet otherwise.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
You too.
Thank you.